decided to hike a section of the John Muir Trail in order to see whether I really wanted to hike the PCT in 2026. I had never been on a backpacking trip longer than 2 nights, and for a planner like me, it felt downright irresponsible to quit my job and decide to hike full time for 6 months without having a longer backpacking experience. I decided to complete a 6-day, 83-mile section from Duck Lake to Bishop Pass. On day one, I landed in Bishop, California, and took a shuttle over to Mammoth Lakes, where I'd be spending 2 nights before hiking. I spent a day in Mammoth acclimating to the altitude and buying last-minute items. I spent my second night at a campground before starting on the Duck Lake Trail the next morning. Every single day of my hike was 12 to 15 miles long with several thousand feet of elevation gain and descent. On my first night, I barely made it to my campsite. I was so incredibly tired that I didn't even eat dinner. I just went straight to sleep. The next morning, though, I was feeling revitalized. As I made my way up to Silver Pass just after sunrise, the spectacular scenery made me feel like Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli as they ran cross country to save the hobbits. That afternoon, I met a fellow hiker named Isaac, and we decided to camp together at Bear Creek. On day three, Isaac and I climbed Selden Pass for some spectacular views of the Alpine Lakes, and then had a long descent to Muir Trail Ranch. I didn't get footage of MTR because I was too shy to film in front of so many people, but I was able to pick up my resupply bucket and charge my electronics while hanging out with fellow hikers. A big group of us decided to make our way across the river and soak in the smelly hot springs before setting up camp for the night. For the first time, I cowboy camped under the stars, but it felt a bit anticlimactic when I had to take off my glasses and could no longer see anything. Most of the crew took off before me the next morning, but I caught up to a 21-year-old college student named Troutman and a PCT hiker, nothing but time, NBT for short. We hiked together and then camped at Evolution Lake. Troutman lived up to his name and started catching fish with the fishing pole he had brought. Day 5 was another difficult descent as we went over Muir Pass and saw Muir Hut. I saw my first marmot and also got to read the confessions to Daddy Muir in the hiker confession logbook that was kept inside the hut. On the descent down the valley, we were hit with the beginnings of what would turn into a series of week-long thunderstorms. I set up camp about half a mile from the trail that would take me off the JMT and over Bishop Pass, saying goodbye to Troutman and NBT who are continuing on. I sheltered during heavy rain in my tent and watched Band of Brothers. Day 6 was my final day and started off difficult with a long ascent. When I was less than an hour from reaching Bishop Pass, the dark storm clouds overhead opened up and dumped rain and hail on me, and the lightning and thunder started too. Faced with the uncertainty of how long the storm would last and knowing I needed to be at the trailhead by 6 p.m., I decided to push on. In a caravan of other section hikers, overnight backpackers, and day hikers, we hiked as fast as we could over the pass and down to South Lake. Two of the section hikers, Will and Brian, and myself managed to get a ride from Scott and Marnie, two locals who drove us to a restaurant for lunch and then dropped us off in town. I had dinner with Will and Brian again before crashing in my motel and preparing to fly home the next day.